And we're off. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Episode 588, the All Dolphins podcast on this Wednesday, October 29th, the day before the Miami Dolphins take on the Baltimore Ravens on Thursday Night Football at Hard Rock Stadium. And to discuss that game and whether the Dolphins can make it two in a row, I am joined by South Florida Sun Sentinel columnist Dave. Hi, Dave. How are you, sir?
I'm ready for a little Thursday night football.
Do you like Thursday Night Football, by the way?
No, but I'm ready for this one. I don't have a choice, right? I mean, that's when the schedule is. I'd much rather play Sunday, but my body needs the extra few days to heal for the Sunday game. Thursday nights are tough.
That's funny. I enjoy Thursday Night Football very, very much when it does involve the Dolphins. It completely messes with the schedule, the routine that I have for leading up to the game. Don't like it, but they didn't ask us for our opinion right before they scheduled this. Before we get into the matchup, I'm going to do my usual spiel of please like, subscribe, comment, share, all that good stuff. Check out the written content at Miami Dolphins on SI.com and get the audio version of the podcast wherever you want. Secondly, before we dive into the matchup and, again, where the Dolphins stand, a couple of quick news items to discuss. There were reports first coming out from ESPN that the Dolphins had a practice squad player poached by the New England Patriots, that being rookie safety John Saunders Jr. The Patriots just sent out a press release not long ago before we started taping this in announcing roster moves. That wasn't one of them. So don't know what's going on over there. And then the final injury report for the game came out. The Dolphins ruled out tight end Julian Hill. Safety Ashton Davis was listed as doubtful. He was not a participant in practice on Wednesday, which was a light practice, and the Dolphins had four players listed as questionable: D. Eskridge, Ifatu Melifonwu, and I should know this by heart, and I'm going to forget it, and I'm going to have to go back to my chart right over here. Bradley Chubb with the shoulder and foot, and he was limited in practice on Wednesday, and rookie cornerback Jason Marshall Jr., who remains on IR but could be activated for the game. And a reminder, the Dolphins do have one open roster spot after putting Storm Duck on injured reserve. And then the flip side of it, things, the Ravens had exactly 0 players with a game status designation, meaning every player on their roster, on their 53-man roster, will be available, including one quarterback, Lamar Jackson.
Or they're wrong with their injury report again, as they were last week, and are in big, big trouble with the NFL.
They went there.
There's even talk of draft picks being taken away from them, which tells you in the gambling world of sports right now how much attention is paid. What if, for those who didn't know, Lamar Jackson was put as a full participant last Friday, and he wasn't, and then he was retroactively downgraded to limited on Friday, but the line was moving all over the place in the interim, and so here we go.
Their defense was that he did take part in a full practice, except he was working with the scout team.
Yeah,
and when you don't work with your normal unit, you have to be listed accordingly. Therefore, he should not have been listed as a full participant. So excellent point by Dave over there. That no, but again, all of the indications are that Lamar indeed will play. Even had a press conference saying, his weekly media session saying he would play, looking forward to it and all that. And we know it hasn't gone well the last 2 times the Dolphins faced Lamar Jackson in terms of how the defense was able to contain him or not contain him, although they were able to win the game at Baltimore in week 2 of the 2022 season. So Dolphins coming off a very, very good defensive performance against the Falcons. Is there any hope, or what percentage of hope is there that they produce anything similar to that against Lamar Jackson and friends?
You know what, where I'm at with the Dolphins right now? Sometimes you just have to say, I don't know. And that's where I am. I'm mystified by this team pretty much all year, from how they came out, how they've lost some games. Then you get the effort in Cleveland, and then you get the miracle in Atlanta, or maybe that's who they are. I have no idea how they're going to come out tomorrow night, or if that's even sustainable what they did last week in Atlanta. we're going to find out. But, 2-6, they don't have anything to hold back on. So Mike McDaniel talked about changes. Some of his how he carried himself showed himself more in the facility. Obviously, Frank Smith coming down, the players thought that was a big deal. Daniel Brunskill as the 6th offensive lineman, running the ball more, using 3 running backs. It worked once. Now Baltimore is going to be a lot more ready for 6 offensive linemen than Atlanta was. Doesn't mean the Dolphins can't do it. It just means the element of surprise won't be there. So I have no idea how this is going to play out.
That's why they play the games, right? I made this comment here on this here podcast and on the Dolphins Collective, and I think it was taken the wrong way when I mentioned and I pointed out that the Dolphins beat a Falcons team that was missing its starting quarterback, that was missing its top wide receiver, which didn't help Kirk Cousins, who was coming in to replace him his first start of the season, including preseason. And they were missing a key inside linebacker. This is not to take anything away from what the Dolphins did against the Falcons, because on their own, they played very, very well. The point I was trying to make there that I'm going to reiterate here is that the level of competition, what the Dolphins did against Atlanta, worked great against that opponent on that day. That the question is, will that be transferable and be able to attain anywhere close to the same level of success against Baltimore, both offensively and defensively? And as you mentioned, Dave, that's the major question mark.
Yeah, and look, Lamar Jackson obviously changes everything coming back. What he can do, MVP, 2-time MVP of the league, and the hub of not just their offense but really their team. You look at they lost to Baltimore 41-40, Detroit 38-30, with him, and they're putting up a lot of points, I guess is my point, even when they're losing to good teams. So I think this is one where, the Dolphins defense just shut down Atlanta in a, to me, shocking way, because of Atlanta's run offense and the Dolphins' run defense to that point. And they'd have to repeat it again against, let's face it, Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson running and passing.
Yeah, and Lamar Jackson has a lot of nice targets for the passing game, whether it be at wide receiver with Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman, whether it be at tight end with Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely, and you mentioned Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson and all that. Atlanta did not have that many ways to attack them. It was pretty much Bijan Robinson. And as Anthony Weaver mentioned before that, he kept telling us every week, we're getting closer in the run defense. If we can just eliminate that 1 or 2 big plays that's been killing us. There was none of that against the Falcons. Again, can the Dolphins do it again? And so you're not ready to believe just yet. If they beat Baltimore, will you be a believer?
No, I'd be a big daddy long step closer to believing. But, one great win so far doesn't wipe out what you saw for 7 weeks previous, okay? 2 great wins. Now you're getting closer. But I feel very scarred by the first, 7 games of the year. And, the defense, I thought they made plays where they mattered. Linebackers have had a ton of tackles this year. But on Sunday, they were tackles with where you want them to be, which was near the line of scrimmage, or even Jordan Brooks had the game of the year, I thought, and very good linebacker for the Dolphins. A little undervalued, I think, nationally, but you looked at his game Sunday and 10 tackles, but 6 of them, 1 sack, 3 tackles behind the line of scrimmage, 3 more tackles within 3 yards of the line of scrimmage. And that's the type of play they've been missing, certainly in the run game.
And, of course, this is where I should point out, and I should be bad Allen for not mentioning it at the top, that Jordan Brooks was named the AFC Defensive Player of the Week for that performance against the Falcons when he had 10 tackles, including 3 for loss and a sack. And the 1 for loss was on Atlanta's first possession, which again I will maintain was monumental in terms of setting a tone for the Dolphin defense, which had been so poor. After the Dolphins won the toss, elected to receive, yuck. Then went 3 and out, complete with a sack, then punted the ball, and I was like, "Oh no, this is the last kind of start the Dolphins need." But they returned the favor on the 3 and out, and they were on their way.
Yeah, and then the Dolphins offense, 8 minutes, 33-second drive where they ran the ball 9 of 13 times, and Mike McDaniel showed the model he was going to have for this game, and it worked.
And it may be a model that, by necessity, again, with necessity is a mother of invention. No Tyreek Hill has been on IR since week 4. No Darren Waller anymore in terms of targets in the passing game. Not a ton beyond Jalen Waddle. What's he have? He has really, really good. He's got a really, really good running back in Devon Achane. You got a promising young dude with Ollie Gordon too. So why not? And if I made this point before too, the game never got away from them, so they could stick with the run. They also, what was key is they had very, very few, negative plays on offense that put them in bad down and distance situations, and that allows you to just stick and grind, because the overall average is 3.8 yards per carry, which is not huge, but they didn't need like a lot of long runs.
Yeah, they stayed with it. The interesting thing, remember in 2016, Adam Gase, because of injury, switched the identity of his offense to a power running game.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not completely different personnel involved, but the idea of a identity change from the speed offense when Tyreek Hill was in there to more of a run, balance. I think Mike wants a balance there that he hasn't had enough in the last few years, and he's tried to this year. And to your point, some games got away from him, and he had to get away. But you can tell he's trying to have a balanced attack this year.
Yeah, and this is where, again, you can't get a holding penalty on like 1st and 10 or 2nd and 7 run. Then you're back to 2nd and 17 or 1st and 20, and then you got issues. Ideally, the formula, particularly if you want to make some hay in the playoffs, is to have a physical running game upon which you can rely on a weekly basis. That was 1 week the Dolphins did that against Atlanta. Again, let's see them do it again a couple more times before we can say the page has been turned maybe on a philosophical approach.
Yeah, I think that you look at the slant to Jalen Waddle,
Mm-hmm.
which I can't remember. It feels like it's been a couple decades since he caught a pass
Mm-hmm.
like that in stride and took it downfield. But you look at that, the run game has a big part of that. You can see the linebackers are starting to move out, and that creates space. And Tua could see over the line, evidently, and he caught him, and perfect pass, perfect, and that's the efficient offense that comes with a balanced attack that they had on Sunday. Now, can they replicate that is the idea.
So as it stands right now, obviously the game Sunday is fresher in our minds because it was more recent, but what's more indicative of who the Dolphins are? Was it the Atlanta game or was it the Cleveland game?
My thought is at the end of a season, what I do is I throw out their worst game. Okay. And I throw out their best game. And I think at the end of the season, those will be the two. Now, can they get to the Atlanta level, regularly, even if everything doesn't work perfectly for them? That's the idea. But I think, those are the outliers right now in the season, and they might be the outliers when we get to the end of the year.
Yeah, the last 2 weeks. So disregard anything you saw the last 2 weeks. Let's go back to the first 6. How much? I'm trying to think of the proper terminology here, and not to be. How much? I can't think of another word than this.
We work with words, and you can't think of the word.
I know I can't think of anything better than that.
I do that.
How much?
When I misspeak.
How much longer is Mike McDaniel's leash right now than it was before the Atlanta game? Do you think?
I really don't think the Atlanta game in the big picture changed anything. Okay. It certainly gave him a some breathing room. But let's move forward to Friday. If they have an ugly loss or even just a normal loss, I think we're looking at a 2-7 team and wondering, okay, what do they do? I think it gave them some breathing room and sense of accomplishment for, to walk in the facility, not only for Mike, but for everybody in that building. Those losses weigh on from the players to the staff workers to the cafeteria people. I mean, the losses weigh on people. So I think it lightened the mood and the attitudes of everybody. But when they say week to week league, when you're 2-6, it's really a week to week league.
Good point. Where do you stand on the likelihood of a coaching change? Are you still thinking it's inevitable or highly likely? Or
well, here's the question, Alan, that I'm okay. Wayne Huizenga decided as he went on and he got experience having to fire coaches that he felt the need to fire him in midseason because he needed to get a start on the next guy. And if he waited to the end of the year, some of his best hit, what could have been if he'd been going down that line, some of his better options were already gone. I'm going to throw a name out that could be gone. And I'm curious. I'm not pushing. I'm curious about this name, Lane Kiffin. Okay. I mean, he has pro experience, as we all know. He's won in college now. And I'd just be interested to talk to him because to me, he's a fascinating. I saw him completely different level. I get it at FAU, but just the way he went about his work, his business, he was much more mature about things than his reputation was from, and a well-earned reputation, by the way. But people mature and become more professional. So I'm not saying. I'm just using him as the example.
Okay.
Does Stephen Ross, is he even thinking about this? I don't know. Feel the need to get a head start on the next guys, or is he just comfortable come, first week of January to say, okay, now we'll start looking around?
Yeah, and as I pointed out in a story I wrote a little while back, that he's fired 4 head coaches since taking over as owner. The first 2 were fired during the season. Tony Sperano, Joe Philbin. The last 2 were fired after a season. Adam Gase, Brian Flores. Is that a trend where which tells us nothing's going to happen during the season? I'll give you another name, by the way. Some fans have thrown this out. And I hate talking hypotheticals because no coaching change has been made, but it is what it is, as they say in the biz. What's your thought on the idea of Chris Shula as a possibility down the line?
Yeah, I think down the line, is he ready? Is he? What's his second year as a defensive coordinator and doing great job? Great job, absolutely. Again, there's the type of guy you need to talk to. Where's he at? And what's he thinking? Does he want to become a head coach right now? Does he feel like he needs, more seasoning? Like Anthony Weaver was asked to be interviewed for head coach. He said, no, I need to, there's things I need to do yet. So, but to your point, there are guys like that I'd be curious about. Where they are, what do they think about the job? Where are they at? And then you get into the first year coach versus the retread. Unfortunately for the Dolphins, there's no obvious guy out there. Like 2 years ago, Jim Harbaugh. Last year, Mike Vrabel. I mean, those were slam dunks, very obvious candidates to chase. I don't hear anybody out there yet, at least, like that.
Yeah, the question I was asking you with Chris Shula was like, not so much in terms of him specifically, but the fact he carries that name, and that's a name that carries a lot of weight in South Florida, and would he even want to deal with, coming down here, and then everything he does, maybe at some point he's going to be measured. Got off to a 4-1 start. Well, Don Shula in 1970 got off to.
Yeah, and whew, great. Here's a Chris Shula story. When Dave Shula was when Dave Shula's wife Leslie was 9 months pregnant, Dave went to the NFL Combine in Indianapolis, and he said, yeah, if she's born, I'll fly back, and see the baby. And Dave goes, you got to remember, it was a different time back then. And thank goodness for his future stories about his son that Chris wasn't born until he got back from the NFL Combine. Which beats the other story. The other story, Dan Shula, Dave's other son, was born the first start of Dan Marino. The morning of, Dave went to the delivery room, then came back. After a couple hours, he said, "Hey, everything's good here at the hospital." He went to the game. He still had blood on his hand, he said, from cutting the cord. And so, anyways, to your point, these are the stories the Shulas will hear if he comes here. There's a million Shula stories.
Oh yeah,
the Shula name's huge. Does he want to? Does he want to? Not that he'd duck it, but that's a lot comes with that name.
Yep. And some of those will be in the school of thought of, I want to create my own identity and do it somewhere other than Miami. Again, that's a bridge down the road. We're not there yet. And quick history lessons, since you mentioned Dan Marino's first start. It was against the Buffalo Bills. It was October 1983. And the story's been told many, many times, where it's the only game Don Shula has ever lost, where in the post-game locker room, he's got a big smile on his face because I got my quarterback. And they lost 38-35 in overtime against Joe Ferguson, the quarterback of the Buffalo Bills. So trading deadline Tuesday. Does what happens against Baltimore impact what the Dolphins do, and what should the Dolphins do? Man, go ahead.
Well, you'd like to say no, the big picture, but let's face it. If they have another nice win, they're 3-6. I don't think they can save their season, but they can salvage some good entertainment and development and all that. It'd be harder to say, okay, we're going to trade. Then if you lose and you're 2-7 and so look, it's easy to say no, it doesn't have any difference because the season is cast. But I think, yeah, it does. I think from an emotional standpoint, if you lose and you're 2-7, that's a lot easier than you have two nice wins and you're 3-6.
It's actually interesting that the trade deadline last year came after 8 games. This year it's after 9 games. If you remember, last year they were 2-6. Another quick history lesson for those who don't remember: the Dolphins had an offer for Calais Campbell.
Yeah.
For apparently this was from his brother on a podcast. It was a 4th-round pick from San Francisco, and the Dolphins, Mike McDaniel, decided no, we're going to hang on to him because I think we have a run in us. I don't know that the Dolphins have that kind of player on their roster where you want to trade him. Like Calais Campbell has established himself like a veteran who was at the end of his career, who had good market value. And the idea was like, you do him a solid to send him to a contender. And eventually Dolphins decided against it because they felt they had a run coming. They did have a run coming because they wound up getting to 8-8 at some point. In the process, they did pass up the chance of picking up a 4th-round pick. And for those wondering about the compensatory picks, as it stands right now over the cap, which projects these things on a regular basis right now, has the Dolphins not in line for any compensatory picks.
Yeah, I was thinking, why would they trade Jalen Phillips? And because they could get a compensatory pick. So I was a little surprised by that. And look, he knows the cap rules a lot in and out than me. The thing last year that I remember, if they had traded Calais Campbell, the mood inside the team would have, okay, you've lost the team. You're telling the team we're done.
Yep.
Okay. And would have, it'd probably be the same this year, depending on who you go. Now, Bradley Chubb's the name people mention. I got to admit, I'm not sure that there's big market out there for Bradley Chubb the way he's been playing. A sort of a dark horse name that surprised me, I'm even saying it, is Rasul Butler, a team needing a cornerback.
Rasul Douglas.
Oh, Rasul Douglas.
Get out of heat mode.
I'm thinking of the basketball, the Heat. I'm amazed the Heat lead the league in scoring right now, and so I've been thinking about them today. Rasul Douglas, and veteran cornerback, played better than certainly anybody expected, or a lot of teams would have signed him before the Dolphins did this summer.
Yep.
And so, look, but what are we talking here? 6th round pick, 5th round pick, maybe if you throw in a 6. I mean, so we're not talking any great changing of the franchise with a trade. We're talking stuff on the margins.
No, but then I keep hearing, just because some teams are desperate for a wide receiver, I keep hearing people are going to make calls on Jalen Waddle. And I look at his contract with a cap number that's 11.7 next year. And I'm like, why in the hell would the Dolphins even entertain the idea, unless it's for a 1 or maybe even a 2? I'm not sure I'd do it. Why?
Yeah, I'm with you on that. When people turn around, they could trade him because his cap number is really good, and I'm thinking that's why you don't trade. You don't want to trade him. You have him. You've already spent most of the money on him, so keep him. I will say, when Philadelphia brought was it Brandon Graham out of retirement?
Yep.
Now he's a legend in Philadelphia, so there's that factor. But it tells you where teams are. At least some teams are that want to make a run at depth at some positions. And so would there be a market for Jalen Phillips? Sure. Depending on, what you think is a good market. And again, I don't think any of the trades would, you'd be wowed by any of them. What ultimately what the Dolphins have to decide is simply this: what are we going to do with the rest of the year? After Thursday night, they need to sit down and have a powwow. Stephen Ross and Mike McDaniel, Chris Greer, maybe not even Mike McDaniel and Chris Greer, maybe Stephen Ross and the upper echelon with Tom Garfinkel. And what are we going to do? What do we want to do? And that needs to be decided before you get into, do we want to trade people?
Correct. And I'd take it a step further and say, who on our roster figures into the plans for 2026? And this is where, because Jalen Phillips is playing on his 5th-year option, that $13.1 million. He's unsigned for 2026, going to be a UFA. Do you have an intention of signing him to a long-term deal? What's that going to look like? He's got the injury history that you have to consider. And the thing with it's not like, well, we'll hang on to him and get a comp pick. You get a comp pick if you lose more qualifying compensatory free agents than you sign. So when the Dolphins are in full rebuild mode, chances are they're going to sign a number of free agents, and how many of those are going to be qualifying compensatory free agents, and then you could lose Jalen Phillips in free agency and you're still not getting a comp pick, as it appears to be the case right now with Calais Campbell. So that's also something to consider if a team is dangling a 4th-round pick, because I think he'd probably fetch more than Bradley Chubb.
I will say, full rebuild mode, if you do it right, I mean, it isn't how the Dolphins have done it, where it's, you look back and we're in year 7, or, okay. Teams flip quickly if you make the right decisions. I mean, Indianapolis needed a quarterback. They got a quarterback. Now, they had a lot of other pieces in place. Look at the Giants. They've changed the feel around their team in the first half of this season. Denver, the season the Dolphins beat them 70-3. They came out of that season on the come, right? Yep. So the problem with the Dolphins, also beyond a lot of roster issues, is almost a mindset where, we're going to go in full rebuild and okay, we'll see you in 4 years. They got to get people with okay, we can make a couple good decisions here, have a good offseason in a draft and free agency, and I'm not huge money free, but just making good football decisions, and it can change quickly.
Yeah, and I would look at Denver because Denver's a good example because I think the best model for a quick turnaround, let's be honest, is you hire a great coach with a great quarterback, i.e. New England, which nailed Drake May and Mike Vrabel. However, and I don't think Tua's at that level, even though he's coming off a very efficient game. Tua, to me, is part of a bigger picture. You can win with Tua with pieces around him. He's not going to necessarily going to be the driving force to get you where you want to go. Having said that, I don't look at Bo Nix as being somebody who's like a driving force either. I see him a lot like Tua is. Therefore, you don't necessarily need, again, it doesn't have to be blown up and fixated on landing that complete stud quarterback. Although, again, it is the fastest path to a massive turnaround, i.e. Jaden Daniels, i.e. Drake May.
Yeah, I mean, the easiest formula is you need three things: personnel guy, coach, quarterback. And you can go a lot of different ways after that, but those are the three positions you need.
Except I could make the argument and go, Daniel Jones, really? This is a guy that he's playing MVP caliber quarterback right now. Because he's somebody who anybody before the season would have said that. Because heading into the opener,
you can go down the line of look at Baker Mayfield. Who would have said that about him? And yet, I go back to the line, Bill, well, organizations make quarterbacks. And I didn't understand what he was saying, and now I do, having lived the last 20 years with the Dolphins on some level. And you look around, if you have a good organization, that helps develop. You need that to develop a quarterback. And all the Tua defenders, that's absolutely, it hasn't been a good organization around them. But
yeah, I might push back and say when they got Tyreek and Jalen Waddle and Devon Achane and build like a track team around them, I think organizationally maybe they weren't great, but I think they put like a structure in place to really max out what Tua does well.
He had talent for 2 years around him. Yeah, I agree. But the organization to make good football decisions inside. And now we're getting into a different issue, which is who you invest in, what type of person you invest in. And is that a good organization that invests in the wrong people, even if they're super talented? But good organizations invest in good people. And that's something the Dolphins haven't done enough of.
And that'll be a discussion for another time. Before I let you go, Dave, not a prediction, percentage chance the Dolphins win on Thursday night.
Percentage chance wow. It's easier just to give a prediction, Alan.
Yeah, no. But this is more interesting to me.
Okay, 38.6% chance that they win on. Oh, wait a second. In the Sunset, and I gotta go. I'm gonna go 51% just because I predicted the
Dolphins.
I did predict the Dolphins.
Whoa.
But in fairness, I've been wrong on everything about the Dolphins this year except the Jets game. Every prediction's been wrong. I said I'm going to predict them. I know they're a better team than this. Then Atlanta, I said, forget it. I'm done predicting that they're going to win. And so I picked Atlanta, and here we are. So that's why I say I have no idea what's going to. Don't ask me what's going to happen.
No. I know we don't know. We're throwing darts and we're making as educated a guess as we possibly can, or as uneducated a guess, however you want to look at it. You said 38.6. I was like, whoa, that's pretty high because I don't know, Baltimore with all their dudes. I don't know. It would be actually uplifting to see the Dolphins.
What's your percentage? What are you at?
27.4.
I see the thermometer going down.
Yeah. 27.4. 27.4. How's that?
Okay.
We shall see. Hopefully, we will be discussing a Dolphins win. Check your notifications. I am thinking of possibly doing a live post-game show after the game on Thursday. Might be past my bedtime, so I'm not sure. If not, we'll do something Friday morning. He is Dave Hyde from the South Florida Sun Sentinel. Check out his fine work at sunsentinel.com. Please like, subscribe, comment, and more importantly, check out the written content at Miami Dolphins on SI.com. Get your audio podcast wherever you get your audio podcast, Google, Spotify, Apple, all those good places. That's going to wrap it up. Thanks, everyone. Dave?
Alan?